This is the Final Percent Podcast with Greg Kimble, and I am sitting here in beautiful downtown Denver on the 35th floor overlooking a beautiful landscape with one of my very good friends, Kyle Henderson. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. What an honor to be on the show. Huge fan.
Well, first and foremost, thanks for coming to my birthday party. We had a good time.
We did, man.
We sang together, and we've been in each other's lives for going on 9 years now. We've known of each other. The man, the myth, the legend that is Kyle or Greg from each other's perspectives. I've always had a tremendous amount of love and respect for you ever since the moment that I met you, man. And you've done some pretty incredible things in your own right, man. So tell us kind of a little bit of a backstory on who is Kyle, what have you accomplished, what are some of the things you're proud of, what are maybe some of the things you're not so proud of?
You bet.
All that good stuff, man.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, what a birthday party.
Yeah,
and
we had
what,
a good time.
What a voice. We sang No Diggity, No Doubt, and we had a great time doing it.
Yeah, it was great.
So you're getting older, man. I'll give you a little
Thanks for that.
backstory.
You're getting older, man.
I'm looking for the gray hairs. I still don't see any.
Not yet.
Not yet. But born and raised in Colorado. I'm a byproduct of Detroit, Michigan, where my mom's from, Motor City, and Northern Ireland.
Shout out Motown.
Motown. And my dad's from Ireland, Northern Ireland. So those two collided in Colorado, and I was a little love child / accident, and they had 3 more boys and gave up trying to have a girl after having 4 boys. So I was the oldest of those 4 boys.
Oh, so you're the big brother.
That's right. And watched my dad, as a veterinarian, take his practice, from nothing to something. He was an employee and turned into an entrepreneur. And I watched just how nice that was for our family, and that was inspiring for me, man. Was involved in every major in college you can imagine. I changed it a million times. Thought I wanted to be a doctor.
Okay.
Fell asleep in every biology class, and realized I had a knack for business, and really enjoyed that. I got involved in this group called the Academy of Young Investors.
Oh, cool.
And my first time at that meeting, the president had some events outside of his life take place, and he had to step down, and I literally stepped in and took over that group and started to run it and started to build my just investor sort of background and knowledge. But started right out of college writing business plans and marketing plans and falling on my face over and over. When everyone else was sending out resumes trying to find work, I was just meeting as many people as I could. And I've got a wonderful wife named Mandy. I've got 2 kids, Presley and Grayson. Presley's 5, Grayson's 3.
Okay.
And I think the one thing I want to teach them is how to be good with people. I think that's the superpower in this world, because there's specialists of every type and every stripe around every corner. And I've realized, go out there and, make connections, make friends without agenda.
Yeah. Amen on that.
And just be a giver. And, that's worked really well for me. So right out of college, I got involved in the private jet space. Hit it off with a gentleman named Josh Stewart.
Okay.
And he's the founder and CEO of XJet.
Okay.
And we had started just to hit it off. He heard I was writing business and marketing plans and wanted to bring me on because he had this idea in his head. And we decided to start writing that plan and developing XJet's business plan, and went to Colorado's market and got a lot of oil and gas families, behind the idea, and launched. And XJet went on to become the #1 operation of its kind in North and South America, and it's traditionally top 3, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
How old were you when you did that?
Right out of college, I started working at XJet when I was 21, and they were a client of mine from a consulting standpoint, but it turned into a full-time job but I don't have a life kind of a gig, but it was an executive MBA program on steroids, because we'd have, John Paul DiGiorio and presidents and celebrities flying in all the time. I remember one of my first days, this gal was like, gosh, the Candyman's here. And I was like, what is she talking about? It was Eminem, that had just flown in. And, that was XJet. I mean, to have the First Lady of Mexico there and the President of Kenya, and it was always fascinating. But I grew up really quick, and I was 21, 22, 23 years old as it was getting going, and we had to reach out to all the wealthiest individuals in Colorado from scratch.
Wow.
And you learn real quick that we're all just human beings doing the best we can. So
Absolutely.
it doesn't matter if you work at Starbucks or you're recycling equipment on the metal side, or if you're a startup entrepreneur on the real estate side. We're all just people doing the best we can, and we have different drives and desires. But I realized you just have to be yourself.
Yeah.
Your authentic self, whatever that looks like. If you're
we
shy.
were just talking about authenticity.
Yeah, and it's being talked about a lot more, which is great. But if you're a little rough around the edges, be a little rough around the edges. If you're a little shy, just be who you are.
Yeah.
And then love on others without always having an agenda.
Amen, man. That's so. What if you had three things to tell someone that when they're going to be an entrepreneur, they're going to get into the game, they're going to work for themselves. What are some of the things you wished someone would have told you sooner so that you could be just a little bit further down the road than you are today?
Yeah, no, I love it.
If you had to go back and talk to yourself, what would you say to yourself? That's a better question. Three things you wish you could have told yourself.
Right.
General principles. There's probably specific instances you'd like to go back and go, don't do that. But
right.
but I was saying like a principle. If you said, man, Kyle, learn these three things, man, and it's just going to pay dividends so many times over.
Yeah, that's a terrific question. I think just going back, it's one, always live under your means. Be skinny. You've got nothing to prove to anyone. And we've all heard, the phrase where you're buying stuff you don't need to impress people you don't care about at the end of the day. And it comes back to that authenticity. And just being true to yourself, not comparing yourself to anyone else's journey. You have zero control over where or when you were born. And, I mean, you've hit the lottery being born at all. I mean, we literally live in a sci-fi movie. I mean, regardless of your beliefs, we're on a massive rock spinning around a giant fireball in the middle of infinity. And when you look to the stars, it doesn't make any sense. At the end of the day, no one knows exactly what's going on, but it makes this all so exciting. So jump in. I would also say just practice ultra presence. Don't be so hard on yourself. Have fun. And be, I think it's actually good to go out and play.
I agree.
Get your hands dirty and recharge. I think there's so many stories of people working 80, 130-hour work weeks and everything in between, but you've got to find your story. You've really got to dig deep into yourself to figure out what you're on this planet for. What you're designed to be the very best at. Double down on your strengths. Yeah. Right. And really focus on just jumping in the river, going with the flow, and embracing everything that comes your way. We've all heard the book Loving What Is. Mm-hmm. So many great books out there. I know you and I both just can't read enough.
That's true. We trade many titles. I actually, based on your recommendation, just went through Man's Search for Meaning.
Yes.
And that's a powerful piece of literature. I think literally everyone should go through.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared for everything that book had to offer.
That's a deep one. I'm so happy you enjoyed it, man. I will say, the cool thing about just the fact that we're all on this planet, right? And we're all brothers and sisters. I always think, there's people may have worldly dreams or desires, which is fine. Nothing against that. But imagine if you had a mega yacht and a bunch of private jets and Ferraris and everything else, but there was not a single person on this planet to share it with. We're relational beings. And I think there's something really cool about just, being vulnerable, being open, because you're actually creating relatability and closeness between you and others as opposed to the opposite, which is distance. And, in our XJet days, we used to host events, and they still do, for nonprofits, YPO, CXO type events. And started building my network out and wanted to invest in commercial real estate, and got introduced to Brian Watson, who I understand is going to be on the show as well.
Yeah.
So Brian,
great guy.
Yeah, Brian's exceptional. I've been working with him for over 10 years now, and we started a for-profit and a non-profit together, Excel Companies, and then the Opportunity Coalition.
Nice.
And now we're staying on top of all things Northstar. So Northstar Commercial Partners, we've got $1.3 billion in assets under management, very diversified commercial real estate group. We've got a few funds, and we're focused heavily on data center development and other things like that. So I think one of the reason I bring that up is we're still a relational business first and foremost. So everything we do is relational.
Yeah.
We're constantly getting people together and, having their share their raw, authentic stories amongst one another without agenda. So we'll get a ton of people together over lunch, as you've experienced.
Yeah, it's a great time.
And everyone gets to share what they're working on professionally, what they're passionate about philanthropically, and we are not selling anything in a big pitch at the end. It's just magic when the connections happen amongst one another. Yeah. And we simply ask that, hey, when you come again, let's all keep on mixing it up and bringing more people, expand the sphere of influence. But everything we do is relational, and we've been involved in politics, philanthropy, and certainly business. But it comes to just slowing down, being present, learning how to protect your time and say no. Everyone, I used to go to every event on the planet, and you certainly have to get out there and meet as many people as you can, but you also have to understand that most of the magic in life comes from such a small percentage of your efforts. There's magic moments, and if you can laser in on that, you're so much more effective, and you'll have so much more time and balance. It's crazy just to exist at all, as deep as that sounds, but I've lost 7 very good friends over the years to accidents and suicide. So I understand, dark times. I've appreciated, and been through, depressive states after losing some of my closest friends. I talk to so many people who struggle with anxiety of different stripes and types, so no one has it figured out. And, we're talking about really powerful people. I've had lunch with the president of Iceland, to billionaires on down to the homeless here in Denver, and everyone in between. And we're all just people doing the best we can in this world. And I think it's important to do everything you can to be a giver and a connector.
Yeah.
And
I was in I can't remember how many episodes ago this was, but we had Bob Eskew on the show, who's a really good friend of mine, and he started ASD companies, which is all access management control. So if you walk into a room and you have to swipe a key card, he invented that company. Wow. And he just sold it, and we were at my Final Percent retreat with all kind of like my mastermind, my group of people, and we were up in Vail, and he was there, and he just heard the conversation that we were having.
Sure.
And he's probably 65, and he comes over and he just starts joining the conversation. And we're a bunch of 30-year-olds at the time, and it was no age mattered, no means mattered, no who's your family mattered. It was just, man, you guys are talking about really interesting things. And we just had him on the podcast, and I asked him at the end of the podcast, I said, can you just give me one takeaway that you think everybody should know? And he says, I think the world needs to love people and use things, and stop loving things and using people.
I love that.
And I went,
awesome.
It was such a mic drop, man. It was such, I even said it. We were graduating 50 kids that night from my school that I own in Boulder, Colorado, and I even used that to end the speech, because I think that in this world of Instagram and things and likes, we're losing touch with what we're supposed to love. And I think that one of the things that I have really been focusing on is really trying to understand and drill down on the difference between pleasure versus happiness.
Right.
And I think a lot of people don't understand. They haven't truly understood happiness. And so they're trying to find all the pleasurable things in life, like a car or a big house or status or followers or likes, whatever it is, and they're trying to put that in whatever hole they have for happiness.
That's right.
But they don't understand that happiness, I'll kind of give you a big epiphany that I came to the other day, is understanding that Amazon was the world's second $1 trillion company, and understanding how much money Jeff Bezos actually had. And the entrepreneur inside of me goes, I want to make that big of a difference. I want to make that much of an impact. I want to have that much money. I want to become the person who can generate that much money. But then I read the whole article about him getting a divorce. And I realized that him focusing so much on Amazon and building that and becoming the person who could make that difference cost him his marriage. And then just like magic, like God's just kind of knocking on my heart, showing me the way. Like magic, Kayla walks into the room, asks me if I wanted a drink or something to eat. And looking her in the face, I at that moment realized that I was a richer man than Jeff Bezos.
Amen. Because
I can look at my wife and I know that I'm good. Now that's happiness.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing. I love the analogy. If you have a mega yacht and you have the planes and you have this and no one to share it with, do you care?
No.
And the answer is no.
Well, and it's fascinating, right? So often in life, especially when we're bombarded with social media, which is primarily the absolute best or the worst of someone's life. They're either on vacation in Hawaii or their aunt got in a car accident. So either way, it's not going to make you feel that great if you're in the business of comparing yourself to others. So compare yourself to only yourself. Mm-hmm. And then also, I just think there's this trend where people won't give themselves permission to be happy until they have this amount in the bank, they've married this person, they have the kids, they've got the puppy, whatever else it may be. Yeah. But that's always going to be a losing game. You've really got to love what is, or you're never going to love what is.
You know, I found, I was looking at it, and so many times I think that the country is founded on something that is a little misleading. They say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And if you look up the word pursue, it means to catch something that already exists. And if you look at that idea, it's helping people understand that, hey, you're going to be in the pursuit and the chase, and happiness is already a place. You just got to get there. And I think that we need to change the word pursue to the word ensue, because the word ensue means that it's a direct result of an action. And the best way to create or predict the future is to create it. Right. And I think that's what we have to help the young people understand, is your happiness will ensue if you do this. Stop pursuing anything. Maybe the pursuit of more knowledge.
I like that.
But I really think we have to change that whole way of thinking from pursue to ensue, because that's what building Northstar was. It ensued because you guys never stopped, and you saw opportunities, and you built, and you took action, and you learned. It's this sitting on an entire floor of a building in downtown Denver. This is something that ensued. Because 10 years ago, you guys weren't sitting around a table saying, how can we get to the 35th floor of downtown Denver? Right. No, you said, man, how can we change some lives? How can we make a difference? How can we do right by our partners? How can we invest more, do more, have more? How can we be more?
That's right.
And that's the big thing, is like, I always tell people, like, if you're going to look at it, it's human being, not human doing, not human having.
That's right.
You've got to be someone.
It's amazing, because there's so many, I call it, opportunity overwhelm for any of us. Mm-hmm. But it's taking it one step at a time, processing it bit by bit, and enjoying the process and the journey. And it's like, when I look back, and there's certainly countless, millions of mistakes made over the years through myself and others, where you learn. And I wouldn't change a single experience for anything, because it's sharpened that sword. Yeah. And I will tell anyone just going through, the valley, like, just keep on refining, and then pick constants that you can start improving. There's certain things, like, I've got a very minimalist side, but you spend money on, there's the things you spend money on that are important, like your bed.
Yeah.
You need to get good sleep. You know,
Yeah.
the chair at your office.
Yeah.
Right. Healthy foods, microgreens, you know, gut health. Those little things all sort of play in to you just operating at the best level. So you've got to put the odds in your favor.
Yeah.
Don't be too hard on yourself. And also just remember that everyone is going through their own trials, triumphs, tribulations, and everything in between. And so, you know, love is really the most powerful thing. We're all brothers and sisters. We're more alike than we are different. And I think when you're always out there just trying to, hey, listen, be curious. The best way to be interesting is to be interested. And just talk to as many people as you can. Hear their stories. Start connecting the dots. Make introductions. And, you know, there's so many different ways you can take that regardless of what career trajectory you want it to be like. And I'll just say, like, one thing in life, you've just got to try stuff. I mean, if someone came to me, you know, a decade plus ago with a prototype for Crocs shoes and said, I'm going to make $1 billion with these little rubber things, you know, these little Crocs rubber shoes. They're made of the same thing that hot tub pillows are made out of. Okay. You don't know unless you try, and you the only way, I mean, no one knows. You see if it's going to resonate with the marketplace, and everything is easier than it's ever been before. I mean, as we all know, with the speed of e-commerce, the ability to target market, and you can take it so many directions, whether it's for-profit or non-profit or some combination of the two.
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's just what difference did you make? Yeah. And that's, I have this kind of long speech that I'll talk to kids about, just kind of going over the story of Winston Churchill with his assistant saying, was this your best work? And when I really kind of turned a corner in my life, I had this whole idea of, I want to wake up with a purpose. So I need somewhere to go. I want to wake up with a purpose, and whether it's my purpose is to go read a book, whether it's to love my wife, whether it's I just need to wake up and not go, wonder what I'm going to do today. Like, that's just not inside of me. I don't know what that's like. But more importantly, and this is where kind of the idea germinated from the final percent, is when I go to sleep, when I put my head on the pillow, I want to truly feel accomplished. And I think humans are getting addicted to the idea of being active and looking active, but they're not accomplishing anything. Right. And so what I did is I had a pillowcase that I took into Joann's Fabric and asked them, hey, can you do embroidery for me? And they, of course, looked at me like I was insane, because they said, well, if you want to knit it, it's beyond me. And they gave me the idea, well, if you go to one of those hat shops in a mall, they can kind of embroider anything for you. So I took my pillowcase into the mall, and I said, can you just put on the side of my pillowcase, was this your best work? And so I did that for the first probably 2.5, 3 years of me just having nothing, being scared of eviction, my phone's turned off, eating ramen noodles. But every single time I would put my head down on the pillow, and I'm signing my day back to God, saying, hey, you know what? I know I don't have another one of these. Well, I don't know I have another one of these, but I don't get this day again. Right. I want to truly put my head down on my pillow and use my head laying down on my pillow as a signature of saying, this was my best work.
Gosh, do I love that, man.
And that's what we've got to do.
Yeah, that's huge. It reminds me, too, man, which is, you know, some people can get discouraged when everyone else is operating at such a high level. And sometimes, you know, 100% in one day is not, you know, equivalent to 100% the week before. But you keep on showing up. Exactly. And always keep an open mind, because I call them spontaneous collisions. And let's just imagine that you're Mark Zuckerberg and, you know, you're waking up and you just never know, is this the day that you get your Facebook idea? But if you're not open to that sort of stuff, it'll never happen. And also, some people, you know, are so brilliant that they think of every reason why something's not going to work. What happens, you know, instead of thinking what's the worst that can happen, what's the best that can happen, come to terms with worst case scenario. It's I mean, you can usually go hang out with your mom and eat Fruit Loops on her couch if things get bad, which really isn't that bad.
My mom would actually really enjoy me going and hanging out with her, eating Fruit Loops on her couch. So,
But, and it's funny, though, as some comedians have alluded to in a sarcastic way, it's like everything's better than it's ever been. We live in the most exciting times, and yet people are still struggling out there, and it's because our psyches are getting hacked. So protect yourself, stay focused, on your journey. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. There is so much abundance out there and so many different ways to take it, but also remember that even Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates will never realize their full potential.
Yeah.
They've all made mistakes. They could have each been astronomically more wealthy had they played the cards a little. There's no way that you can ever reach that benchmark, right. So you've got to just enjoy the dance.
And that's the big kind of thing that is going on right now is when you say, was this your best work? Jeff Bezos' best work is creating Amazon and doing that. His best work isn't being a husband. We just learned that.
Right. And
it's just, okay, where are you going to do, where are you going to put your priority? And one of the things that my wife and I practice, shout out Kayla, you're the best. And one thing we practice is if we have to say no to the other person, we have to also be able to verbally say the words, right now you're not the priority. And if you have to say that out loud to your wife, whatever you're doing better be dang important. And that's the big thing. So if you're looking at your business, hey, someone calls you to put out a fire at your business. Hey, I can't come in right now. And just say to yourself, right now you're not the priority. Right now that's not the priority. And then if you're in the middle of Game of Thrones, then say to yourself, right now this is my priority. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense. It's insane, It's that's the big thing that I think, and then going back to the best work idea, is the best work that you have is in that moment. And I always tell my nephew who's 18 is look, man, I don't want you to think about where you're going to be when you're 21, where you've been. My nephew, unfortunately, was in the Aurora Theater shooting. That's one of the reasons he lives with me. And he's still processing that kind of memory.
Of course.
And so he's going through all of these things. And one thing that I tell him is I say, look, whatever moment you're in right now is the most important moment of your life. So whether you're taking out the trash, whether you're cooking dinner, whether you're debating, whether you're trying to buy a car, I don't care what it is. Whatever's right in front of you, that is the most important moment of your life. Because like me just saying those words, it's already gone. We're in a new moment now. And so you have to, and that's why I love you couldn't help but say, stay present, have hyper presence, and be in the now. And I think so many people get caught up in where they think they're going to go, and then life throws them a curveball and they're surprised. No, life is actively thinking up bigger and crazier curveballs to throw you. So all you can do is your very best in that moment. And it's not even that day. It's that very second. Are you there? Are you connecting? And one of the things that's a funny story with me and my wife is I have, anytime I'm going to go into a conversation with someone, I've always said something because it puts me in the right mindset. I will look at someone, and in my mind, I won't say it out loud. I'll say, you have never met anyone like me, and I'm going to change your life. Because I want to be in that mode if I'm going to connect with someone. Here's the problem, man. When I met my wife, she had me so nervous because she's the most beautiful being on the planet. She sits down and we're looking at each other, and I look at her and I go, you've never met anyone like me, and I'm going to change your life. And she started laughing at me, and I was, what did I just say? I cannot I was like, I cannot believe I just said that. And she absolutely was laughing that time. I was probably crazy to her, but it's so funny. If you ask her about that story now, she says, nothing could have been more true.
Wow.
And that's you want to put yourself in the best possible position to succeed.
Right.
And that's what you can do every single day in every relationship, interaction. And that's why I can't tell you how many times I have had my life absolutely changed because I didn't have an agenda, because I was just there.
That's what it's all about.
And that's what it's all about.
I think it's the only way authentic connection can happen. If someone is aiming for someone or something, back end motivations, money, etc. It just takes away from the potential authentic nature of that relationship.
Absolutely.
And I think just a my other big thing in life is to be a learner and not a judger. There's this book called Change Your Questions, Change Your Life that really speaks to that so well. But, meet anyone and everyone where they are. I mean, if you or I were born there in their circumstances at that place and time, we would be that person. And none of us are any better than anyone else. We're all just doing the best we can, so we've got to share what we learn, and none of us have the answers. We're just sharing our unique perspectives at the end of the day. But then also understanding the upside of stress. We've been programmed forever that it's a negative thing. There's a book called The Upside of Stress that I highly recommend, that just really reprograms you in the healthiest way. And we all think about those moments where you enter the gun and you turn out your best work.
Oh, that's how diamond's made.
That's exactly right. So it's just, not being so hard on yourself, enjoying the journey, and, focusing like a laser on those things that are important to you. But again, so many people are living someone else's life. They've never really taken the time just to figure out, why am I here? What do I want to focus on? And it could be loving on each and every person that life puts before you, regardless of whether you're the best barista in town, or you're the coolest janitor at the office building, or you're running, Amazon at the end of the day. And just meet anyone, everyone where you can, but you also have to protect your time strategically so you can actually get things done. So
absolutely. It's a balancing act for sure.
Really,
it's a balancing act, and you want to love people, and I think one of the things that people forget about is, if you want to love people, a lot of times you forget that you also, whether you like it or not, want to be loved on. And so the problem that'll happen is, if you get into this hyper help and hyper love for all of these people, you start doing it for the wrong reasons, because you're trying to plant seeds of, I did this for you, now can you give me a hug? Because I really need one.
Tick for tack.
Yeah, and I think that we really need to get into that give mentality, not give and take. We're taught from a very early age, everything's give and take. If I'm going to do this for you, what are you going to do for me? The teacher says, if you are quiet right now, I will give you a cookie. The everything in your entire life is you're the follower, and it's give and take. And I think the real power is we learn to take the wrong things. Maybe the thing that you take and you have that just touches your heart and changes your life is the fact that you changed someone else's. If we could get into that, think about it. I've got 10 billion people watching my back. I no longer have to watch my back, if that's the culture.
Amen. It reminds me of one other thing, Greg, that you so well said. Life is pretty boring when it's all about you, and it's, I've gone through phases where, in startup mode, put every dollar I had into my company, and I was, getting peanut butter and jelly for my girlfriend at the time, like surviving, right? So like I get that end of it, and I've also experienced and had, just about everything I could have ever imagined, but it doesn't matter. It's getting back to the core of where your heart is, and, connecting with other people. That's what it's all about, is those relational connections. And you don't know, we're all a layer removed from magic. Never forget it. And
I love that.
It's a very small world. It's getting smaller by the moment.
Yeah.
But I think it's a very exciting time to be alive. Look at the technology we're seeing today.
Oh yeah.
I mean, next time, we're doing this a few years from now or whatever. Imagine what the technology is going to be like.
Oh,
then.
It's
so
exponential right now. All right. Well, so we're 33 minutes into this. What is the big takeaway that you would like to have everyone get from something Kyle Henderson wants to sow into your life? What's the big takeaway that you'd just like to, but it could be something completely new that we haven't talked about. It could be something we've already said. But if there's one thing, what do you want to make sure that everybody takes away from this podcast?
Yeah, I think it comes back to life's urgency and the fact that we're all born with that terminal disease called being born, so none of us are getting out of here alive, and I think there's something incredibly beautiful about that. And it's such a miracle to be here at all. So don't be so hard on yourself. You don't have to be a Mark Zuckerberg to be happy.
No.
It's really about finding your thing, and your thing may be, playing Fortnite for an hour, once a day, and then, painting with your kids, and figure out what your thing is. Stop comparing yourself to anyone and everyone else. Figure out what you're about. And what's really cool is when you own that, people come around you. I remember in high school, there's a guy with an old piece of crap car that he loved. Everyone loved that car. And then you had the other kid who was given a new car that he couldn't stand, and everyone else could. It's just, you create your own reality.
Yeah.
And if you just live your life with confidence and, the miracle that you are, magic starts to happen.
The miracle that you already are.
Yeah. And stop, for me, it's a lot of thoughts are bait underlying, many emotions, so we grab at them. And what I mean by that is, thoughts are endless distractions. Be present. That's what it's all about. A lot of our thoughts aren't really that constructive at the end of the day. If you need to dive deep and be strategic, get out a pad of paper, but focus exclusively on what it is you're doing without distraction.
Amen on that. All right. Well, thank you very much, Kyle. I really appreciate you coming on to the show.
Yeah. Amen. Thank you for having me.
This has been the Final Percent Podcast with Kyle, the man, Henderson. Kyle, Mr. Presence, Henderson. Thank you so much, Kyle. We really, really appreciate it. Good job, man.